This is the Honda E, Honda's first fully electric car. It's got a WLTP range of around 130 miles from a full charge, a starting price from around £26,000, and we're going to tell you if it's any good. Before we start, make sure you go to whatcar.com if you do want to buy a new car, because there you can get a great deal. Now, we're going to start by just looking at the car, because one of the reasons it's been so hotly anticipated is because of its looks. It's obviously really different from everything else. It's got a kind of first generation Civic look to it and some clear Japanese K-car inspiration as well. And it does look really cool. Obviously it's a subjective thing, but there's lots of design features to point out, like these cool headlights at the front that are circular and the black fascia that runs all along the front. And here, that's where the charging port is, if you're wondering what that is. But they've incorporated it really nicely into the design. Interesting alloy design. And on the side, these, you can see, are not door mirrors, but in fact, door cameras. And we'll show you inside how that looks, and we're going to test them out later as well. Interesting design point, flush door handles. And the whole car really has a kind of 3-door look to it, but it's actually 5-door only. Similar to the front, those circular lights, and this black bar that runs along the back. Short overhangs as well, so that should mean that moving it around town, judging your distances for parking, should all be pretty easy. But now, let's take a look inside. Now, outside, it looks really cool. And inside, it looks really cool as well. It's a bit of a screen fest. So you've got 2 screens for the door mirrors, because they're cameras, not mirrors, which takes a bit of getting used to, but we'll discuss that more when we're driving the thing. Then you've got a screen for the driver display. Then you have these 2 central screens for the infotainment, and it's all joined together. So it's really got a pretty serious wow factor that you don't get in any other electric car interior, that's for sure. However, it looks really cool, but then you think, hang on, there's lots of screens here, and it's all made by Honda. Now, we know from previous experience what their infotainment systems are like on other cars, and frankly, they're some of the worst available on the market. So, I was quite hesitant to feel excited when getting in the Honda E initially. And unfortunately, having spent some time with the system, it isn't brilliant. So you can see the graphics themselves, they're not really razor sharp. There's a bit of fuzz to it. The resolution isn't kind of slick or cutting edge like it is on some other electric cars. I mean, it's still undoubtedly more impressive to look at than the Renault Zoe with its updated interior, and the Seat Mii Electric for sure, which just has a place to put your smartphone. There are so many menus, so many shortcut buttons dotted around, and it is really quite confusing, especially if you want to use it on the move as well. You can control it on this screen, or the passenger or yourself can control this side of the screen as well. And you can even chop and change what is being shown where by pressing this button, going onto the navigation, putting that over to that side. So it's cool, but you can see it's a bit slow. It doesn't kind of instantly respond to what you want it to do. It's loading a bit, taking its time, so it's just a bit annoying and confusing, which is a shame because it does look really, really cool. The good news is that you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, so you can kind of bypass all this confusing tech with that. So that is good. And then up here, you've got another screen, just in case you didn't have enough. The rest of the interior to look at is pretty cool as well. So this, you know, it's not real wood, is it? But it's done in a nicer way than the Honda CR-V, where you get in that, you see the wood effect trim there, and it just looks really cheap. Whereas here, it does look a bit more tasteful, and around this gear selector here, this isn't the prettiest design. And all the plastics feel reasonable quality. This wobbles a little bit, but it's still fairly well put together. The damping of these switches is acceptable, and the quality of the plastics, as I say, it's okay. It's not incredible, but what is nice are these touches like the lining on the door here, and the fabrics of these seats feel really good too. Although the seat bases are quite short, so if you're a really tall driver, you might feel that you're not really got much support under your knees. It's okay for me, but if you were over 6 foot, you might find it a bit of an issue. It's also interesting having this big open space on the front here as well, so you can kick your passenger or they can kick you. And you've got a hidden cup holder which comes out there, somewhere to store your phone, as well as some USB inputs there and places to charge other stuff. So generally the space up front as well, there's loads of room up here, a good amount of adjustment in this steering wheel too. And what a cool design for the steering wheel. This 2-spoke design gives it a kind of floating look, and it's just really cool, nice and chunky, good quality, and generally pretty nice up front. It's just a bit of a shame that the tech isn't the slickest thing to use in the world. But now let's have a look at the back. So this is a small car. In the back, that means the room isn't like a Skoda Superb, surprise, surprise, but it's still okay. So the driver's seat is in my driving position. I've got a reasonable amount of leg room. The floor feels quite high because of course the batteries are stuffed underneath it. And headroom is all right as well. If you're particularly tall, obviously you're not going to be very comfortable back here. But for most other people, it will be okay for as long as you're likely to travel in this car. It can only seat 4 people, so only 2 passengers in the back. And this seat base, again, is pretty short. So you've got pretty much no support under your legs. There are another couple of USB ports, and I do like these lights as well that kind of look like posh living room lights somewhere. And again, nice fabric, nice finish. You've got a bit of a cup holder, but no real door bin. And look, brown seat belts. So generally okay for a car of this size in the back. Now, the boot. You will be able to tell just by looking at it that it's tiny. And if you look at the numbers, in terms of litres, it holds even less than a Seat Mii Electric, which itself is tiny. And another bad thing about the Honda E is that it's not even just a kind of clear, easy, open space. You can see you've got these awkward bulges either side. So really, this is one of the least practical electric cars on sale. There's no space under the bonnet either. And if you lift this up, you've got room for a charging cable, which is useful, but it's pretty tiny. First of all, let me apologise for the absolutely torrential weather that we are driving in at the minute. You'll be looking at some lovely B-roll of someone else driving this car in lovely clear skies, nice weather. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite worked out like that today in Valencia. But still, that's fine. We're going to carry on as if it's totally normal and there is no storm happening around us. So what's this car like to drive? Well, just like many other small electric cars, the pace that's on offer is very impressive off the line. So it's really responsive acceleration, builds pace really nice and quickly, and that's all very good around town. If you're joining a motorway, it'll still get up to speed without too much of a fuss, but obviously this isn't really designed to be a huge mile-munching electric car. Instead, it's all focused around town. And there, it's very good to drive. It's quite comfortable. It's got a relatively sophisticated suspension setup, and it deals with big bumps pretty well, remains fairly smooth. There isn't a lot of body roll either, so it's quite a tall car considering how small it is really. But even with that, if you carry a bit of pace into a corner, it doesn't really lean over that much. And the steering is really good as well, so it's much more communicative than a Seat Mii Electric. In that car, it's great around town because it's really, really light, but you've got no real sense of connection to the front wheels. But in the Honda E, it gives you a lot more than that. And it does actually make it quite fun to drive. So especially on twisting roads, it's pretty good. And you can put it in sport mode as well, and that sharpens up the throttle response, so unlocks the full potential of the pace, which, you know, we're not talking Tesla levels of performance, but it's still really pretty impressively quick. And it's really nicely weighted steering as well. The self-centering is quite aggressive, but not in an unpleasant way. This is just very nice to thread along the road. I'll admit these cameras instead of door mirrors do take a bit of getting used to, because out of the corner of your eye it feels more like a TV screen that you're looking at, which of course you are, so it does just feel a bit weird, but it doesn't take too long to acclimatise to it. And the resolution of the screen's pretty good, and it's definitely worth pointing out that really we are in absolutely terrible weather, but there's no problem with water on the screen as well. So apparently the cameras on the outside have got a water repellent thing on them that means that they won't become completely invisible, which is really good. This driver display is nice and clear as well, although you have got the problem of, for some people, the top of the steering wheel could be blocking a bit of the stuff that's on there. Now, if you take it out of sport mode and put it in normal mode, then that will help the range of the battery. And there are a few other things you can do to aid that as well, like regenerative braking, which you have on every other electric car as well. But in the Honda E, you can use it to the extent where you're just driving with one pedal. So there is another button down here, which you can press. And when you do, it means that when you lift off the accelerator, the car will actually come to a complete stop. And the energy that's created in doing that is used to help replenish the battery. And you can use the paddles on the steering wheel here to adjust the strength of that. So all of that is good, you know, really useful to have, and kind of what we're becoming to expect from modern new electric cars as well. It also has an incredibly small turning circle, which is very useful around town. The car can also park itself, so you've got a button on the dashboard here, and if you press it, you come up to a bay of parking spaces, or if you need to parallel park, the car will do that for you. You need to still be in control of the accelerator and the brake, but it will steer and direct the car for you, which is useful to have. So let me tell you a little bit about the charging speeds for the Honda E. So it gets a 35.5 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery, and it will charge at a maximum speed of around 50 kilowatts. So if you find a rapid charger, like you get at many UK motorway service stations, plug it into one of those and it will go from 0 to 80% in around 30 minutes, which is good, nice and quick, pretty much what all of its rivals will do as well. If you plug it in to a 7 kilowatt wall box charger, then it will go from 0 to 100% in 4.1 hours, according to Honda. And if you want to plug it in to a 3-pin domestic cable, then that's going to take 18.8 hours, which is pretty long. But if you happen to be waiting for that amount of time, there are at least a couple of things to keep you occupied, such as an aquarium, which you can make appear on the infotainment screen. You can even choose different settings, different fish, different numbers of fish, and that's all quite nice, quite fun. Obviously completely useless, but good nonetheless. There's also an HDMI input, so you have USBs and an HDMI. So Honda have given us a Google Chromecast, which means you can cast videos from your phone, like on YouTube, like the What Car YouTube account, which you should make sure you're subscribed to. And you can even plug a games console in as well. There are a lot of small electric car rivals. So the Honda E is up against stuff like the Seat Mii Electric, the Renault Zoe, the MG ZS Electric. There's really so much competition here. And in fact, the pricing is so punchy on the Honda E that it's pretty close to the Kia e-Niro, which is significantly bigger and goes much further on a full charge. So when you consider the Honda E has one of the shortest electric ranges of any new car, and it's more expensive than many of its rivals, it's a difficult sell, although the other cars don't have aquariums. But there are still positives about the Honda E, so it's good to drive. Obviously, the main thing is going to be the design and the styling. Now, that is something that's entirely subjective, so you might be looking at this car and it does absolutely nothing for you, or you might be looking at it and thinking, I have to buy one right now. So it's got really distinctive, nicely designed looks, and that's inside and out, but it's just a shame that the tech on the inside, especially with all these screens and yet the same kind of familiar Honda annoyances with the confusing menus and slow technology behind it, that lets it down. And obviously this really is not a practical car. It's nice and tall, so you should be able to get 4 people traveling around in relative comfort over short distances, but they better not bring anything with them because you are fitting nothing in that boot at all. If you want to know even more about the Honda E, then go to whatcar.com. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, that would be great. And if you've got any opinions or questions about the car, make sure you leave a comment below. And also subscribe to our channel, of course, because we have loads of new reviews coming out every single week. And do not forget, if you are in the market for a new car, the place to buy one and save loads of money is What Car.